It's the 1950s, and after enjoying a fulfilling home-cooked meal of Valium and Spam, the happy American Midwestern couple head out for a drink at their favourite spot in town that reminds the husband of a happier, more nostalgic time during his youth, bringing some escapism from the tropical South Pacific back home.
We brought in our wounded.
That'd be like opening a chain of restaurants in the modern day themed after deepest Afghanistan. Can you imagine? Come on, America. You used to be a real country. One thing about cocktails and the culture surrounding them that I particularly love is the way in which you can really highlight socio-cultural shifts in American identity, particularly changes in political, popular culture and entertainment in the post-war era. Tiki cocktails and bars do this exceptionally well, and whilst, yes, to the layman, they may seem like kitschy, gimmicky, thinly veiled facades for advertisers of spiced rum and packaged holidays, that isn't the case at all. Just because your cocktail is served on a beach or at a beach bar doesn't make it tiki. Quite the opposite, in fact. Today, we're going to be exploring what makes these cocktails so unique, with a quick dive into tiki history and a couple of classic tiki cocktails that modern bars often get completely wrong. I'll also be mixing up an original tiki cocktail of mine that attempts to stay true to what more traditional tiki bars have long been aiming for, as opposed to what you might expect going into a more run-of-the-mill cocktail bar that serves tropical drinks. And yes, it is more interesting than a Malibu and pineapple. Tiki broadly reflects shifts in escapism, consumerism, and exoticism in American society. Back in the 1930s, right in the depths of the Great Depression, Americans were desperate for some kind, any kind of escapism. Something exotic, something exciting, but most importantly, something affordable. Enter a bar named Don the Beachcomber. Opened in 1933 by a man named Ernest Raymond Beaumont Gant, later simply Don Beach. It was the very first tiki bar, opened right in the heart of Los Angeles. Because where else? Don took inspiration from his travels through the Caribbean and South Pacific, serving elaborate rum-based cocktails in a bar decked out with Polynesian-style decor. Hollywood, as it always has, also had a direct influence on American lifestyle as well as social politics, with movies like 1928's Shadows on the South Seas and 1935's Mutiny on the Bounty, romanticising Polynesian life, reinforcing the fantasy of an untouched paradise. And that's our first stop. Let's have a cocktail. Now, this cocktail, the zombie, was first invented in 1934 and is one of the most commonly misappropriated tiki cocktails that you'll see in bars nowadays. No, the real zombie, the original zombie, is something very, very different to the mixture of spiced rum, pineapple juice, and maybe some passion fruit or something that you might be used to seeing nowadays. No, like many tiki cocktails of the age, the zombie is strong. It's really strong. It was famously limited to only 2 per customer at any drinking session at Don the Beachcombers. And it uses a really, really interesting blend of different types of rums to achieve a really full-bodied, really complex, but ultimately satisfying spirit-forward flavour, which is a totally alien concept to what the layman might be thinking about a zombie in the modern day. So, to start the classic 1934 zombie, we are going to need some Demerara Rum. Try to get some overproof Demerara Rum. I cannot, as it so happens, so we shall be using some standard 40% Demerara Rum, of which we shall need 1 ounce. Couldn't get overproof Demerara Rum, but I can get some overproof Jamaican rum. Smith & Cross is fantastic. It is just toasty, funky. Oh, this stuff is beautiful in the classic tiki cocktails. Cannot recommend this highly enough. We shall need 1.5 ounces of the Smith & Cross. We are then going to need 1.5 ounces of a Puerto Rican rum, nicely aged. We are going to use a Bacardi 8-year. And I don't know if you noticed, but that's 4 whole ounces of rum. Some of it overproof. We are going to need 1/2 ounce of Velvet Falernum, which is a classic tiki ingredient just filled to the brim with all kinds of Caribbean flavours. Take a lime and extract from it, if you will, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lime juice. Next, we would normally need 1/2 ounce of something called Don's Mix. Now, Don Beach was infamous for combining several ingredients of any given cocktail into secret mixes that he would then hand to his bartenders. This way, it was a lot harder to steal the recipes for his proprietary cocktails, keeping him one step ahead of the competition. We, however, are simply going to put these ingredients in separately. So, we are going to do about a bar spoon of cinnamon syrup. I'm then going to take a grapefruit and extract from it 2 bar spoons. That happens to work out about 10 milliliters. We are going to need 1 bar spoon of grenadine. You don't see grenadine in cocktails so much. It used to be everywhere. We are going to need just 1 dash of Angostura bitters. Take some absinthe, mine comes in this little tester bottle, and add 6 drops. And that's it, 4 ingredients, so time to shake. I've only got big ice cubes, so I'm just going to crack a few of these into smaller pieces in the shaker. Take a glass. This might not be the era appropriate glass, however, it's the one I'm using. And then I'm just going to dirty pour this straight into the glass. And strain out any extra ice. And I'm going to garnish it with a healthy couple sprigs of mint. I'm going to use a nice bamboo straw. I'm going to take some maraschino cherries, add 2 to a pick, put those on in the glass. And there we have a classic 1934 zombie, as could have been found at Don the Beachcomber. See? That wasn't too hard to make. All right, let's give it a try. Cheers. See if it won't blow my head off. Love mint. Whoa! Okay, wow, that... Woo! That's fantastic. It is bracing. Obviously, 4 whole ounces of rum and 1/2 ounce of a liqueur in there. This is a drink not to be sniffed at. That rum blend comes through so strongly. Demerara, the funky banana, grassy notes I get from the Jamaican rum. The Puerto Rican rum adding just a nice kind of woodsy, barrely note on the end there. That's phenomenal. And then the lime juice, the grapefruit juice, the spices in the falernum add this nice kind of treble note that just sits consistently all throughout, really accentuating it's cliche to say, but those tropical flavors in the rum. Everything you might associate with a tropical flavor, minus the overbearing, cloying sweetness, is totally stripped out, and what you're left with is something strong, something bracing, something complex, and it evolves. But it's not overpowering. Yes, it's really strong and you've got to mind yourself around these, but this is just a fantastic rum delivery vessel. Unfortunately, I can't drink all of this, otherwise I'll never get through the video, but that is a million miles, that is a light year away from the types of zombies you find in bars nowadays that share often 0 ingredients in common. As the classic zombie was earning a name for itself in 1934, another tiki bar by the name of Trader Vic's opened in 1934. And Trader Vic's, which is still around today, really expanded the trends nationwide. But it didn't really blow up until... After World War II, thousands of American servicemen returned home from the South Pacific with stories, souvenirs, and a deep nostalgia for island life. Even though many of their memories were shaped by the war. By the 1950s and 60s, booming post-war prosperity and suburban backyard luau's fueled a craze for all things tropical. When Hawaii became the 50th state in 1959, the obsession only grew. Tiki bars and restaurants popped up everywhere, decked out with bamboo, torches, and carved masks, serving Mai Tais and zombies to guests eager for a little exotic escapism. Even Nixon would sneak off to the Trader Vic's in DC for a Navy grog every now and again. In 1944, at the now nationwide popular Trader Vic's, came a cocktail called the Mai Tai. A cocktail that you all have heard about, you all know it, but I highly doubt you've had one made properly. Modern Mai Tais are just a bastardization of the original recipe, and same as the zombie, rarely conform to any of the original ingredients. It's very, very easy to make, and it's one of the most delicious cocktails on the planet. So why it gets so heavily bastardized in this modern age, I will never know. But enough of that, here's how to make one properly. A proper Mai Tai starts with 2 ounces of rum. Which rum you use is very, very important. At the very least, we need 1 ounce of a strong Jamaican rum. We're once again reaching for the Smith & Cross. This is one of the best rums for a Mai Tai, hands down. So we'll start with 1 ounce of Smith & Cross. The original Mai Tai was made with a Ray and Nephew 17-year rum. This rum, however, was discontinued some decades ago, and at Trader Vic's they began substituting it for other types of rum. So there's no one perfect way to make a classic Mai Tai due to the fact that you can't get the original rum. I have, however, found that ½ ounce of a rum agricole, which is a really grassy French style of rum that bears a large resemblance to cachaça, and ½ ounce of a Demerara Rum get us to a really fantastic place flavour-wise. This blend smells phenomenal. We need ½ ounce of a curacao, curacao being an orange liqueur with a base of brandy, rather than a triple sec, something like Cointreau, which is made with a neutral spirit and lacks a lot of the body, a lot of the flavour. I would highly recommend Pierre Ferrand's dry curacao. We are going to need ½ ounce of orgeat. I am using some homemade stuff. And ½ ounce of a 2-to-1 simple syrup. I have actually found that just doing a ½ ounce of orgeat and omitting the rich simple syrup also works very, very well in a Mai Tai. But we're going for authenticity here. We are going to need 3/4 ounce of lime juice. And that's it for the ingredients. Time to shake. Same with the zombie, we are going to crack a bunch of ice into our shaker. Let's shake. Take a glass, a double rocks glass or a Mai Tai glass. I've also seen it claimed that it should be strained over freshly crushed ice. However, I think simply dirty pouring the cracked ice from the shaker is a very good way to go here and not entirely inauthentic. Now the garnish on this is very, very important to the overall image. We're going to take one of our hollowed out lime husks that we squeezed for the juice, place that near the rim. That is going to represent our desert island. Take a sprig or two of mint, wake those oils up a little bit, place that on the rim where the mint sprigs represent our palm tree. Place in our straw, and there we have a beautiful, classic 1944, or close enough, version of the Mai Tai. This is one of my favourite cocktails of all time. Never ever fails to go down an absolute treat. I really, really like the blend of rums that we used in this, so let's give it a try. Oh, the smell of mint is just phenomenal. That is just, I can almost feel the sun on my face and the sea breeze and the aquamarine water. That's just incredible. It feels so simple and yet it tastes so complex. Much in the same way that the rums come through super strong in something like this. In this, the Jamaican rum and the Demerara and the Agricole are giving this grassy yet woodsy and funky banana undercurrent that the orange curacao and the lime juice are just adding this citrusy punch that's really bringing out a lot of those flavors and absolutely running with it. The brandy base to the curacao is doing a lot to really bolster up particularly sort of the funky banana and some of the woodsy flavors in the rums as well. And the almond syrup rounds everything out in just such a satisfying way. Just this toasty, nutty, but not too overpowering flavor that ties all of those errant flavors in the ether together into one cohesive unit that is ice cold, refreshing, and the blast from the mint just informs so much of the olfactory sensation as you take a sip. It really informs the flavor. It doesn't make it minty, it just makes it bright and refreshing and tropical and strong. No pineapple juice, no 151 rum float, no neon red cherries, no spiced rum. The classic Mai Tai is in a league of its own, and It's no wonder, tasting this, that the drink became as popular as it did, and became so heavily misappropriated at the same time. By the 1950s, tiki bars and tiki cocktails were no longer just niche curiosities, they were symbols of the ultimate vacation. Trader Vic himself brought the Mai Tai to Hawaii's Royal Hawaiian Hotel and Cruise Line. And soon enough, tropical cocktails were inextricably linked with sandy beaches, family holidays, and carefree fun. What started as exotic escapism became mainstream, with sugary twists and paper umbrellas that utterly defied the original intention behind tiki. As tiki culture was hitting its peak, the cracks began to show. By the late 60s and into the 70s, changing tastes, the rise of the hippie movement and the Vietnam War made tiki feel outdated and out of touch. Authentic, balanced drinks were replaced with syrupy, neon-coloured facsimiles. Tiki had faded into kitsch. Well, that is, until the craft cocktail revival of the 1990s and early 2000s. Thanks to passionate tiki historians like Jeff Beachbum-Berry and Martin Cate of Smuggler's Cove, the culture and recipes were rediscovered, and bars like Latitude 29 and Smuggler's Cove now stand as proof that, when done right, tiki still has some serious allure. Whilst I'll always be a proponent of the idea that for a cocktail to be truly tiki, it had to come out of that specific cultural era and invented by the bartenders that pioneered that. Although I am also a fan of how it has, to an extent, had somewhat of a resurgence and continues to evolve and be innovated upon. And I would like to contribute to that. This is an original cocktail, and whilst it doesn't have a million ingredients, it packs about 10 times the flavour. I was really ambitious with this one, and despite how simple it seems on the surface, it really serves to highlight the fact that knowing your ingredients and how they interact with one another really allows you to go to some really interesting places flavour-wise. Now this is an equal measures cocktail, which is pretty bonkers, but it really, really works. And we are going to start with 20 mils of Wray & Nephew overproof Jamaican rum. This is just packed with absolutely absurd quantities of flavour. I love Wray & Nephew. Usually use this as seasoning in something like a Mai Tai, no more than 1/4 of an ounce to add some flavour. I'm going for a whole measure of it here. So you would think, that's just going to take over the whole cocktail. That's not so, because we are also going to need 20 mils or a whole measure of Angostura bitters. Angostura bitters is a classic tiki ingredient, and it's from Trinidad and Tobago, which of course is in the Caribbean. And in order to counter a big, powerful flavour like the Wray & Nephew at 63% ABV, you need an as big or even bigger flavour presence, which we're going to get in the Angostura bitters. We are then going to need 20 mils or another part of some orgeat. Orgeat can be a very strong flavour, often overtakes a lot of cocktails, but strong flavours are what we need right now. It ain't a tiki cocktail without some lime, 20 mils of freshly squeezed lime juice. And that's it, just 4 ingredients. And I'm hoping by now that you're catching my drift by what I mean by it having 10 times the flavour. Ice is in the shaker, let's shake. I'm going to take a Nicanora and double strain away. That's an interesting colour. And considering the precedent set before me with these cocktails, it would seem very out of place if I didn't garnish this. Very subtle sprig of mint. And there we have a cocktail I've not thought of a name for yet, despite the fact I came up with it like 3 years ago. There's going to be a name on screen right now. I'm going to put one right there. That's what it's called. Now I've tried to formulate some kind of playbook, some kind of rule book, by going off of the precedent set before me here, with being strong, rum forward, complex flavours, tropical ingredients. We've got all of that going on here. And I think it's going to taste pretty damn good. Oh man, that is good. That cocktail, I can't even begin to describe the flavour that that cocktail has. Immediately, you sort of just get this, I don't even know, sweet lime, spice, rum, the funky Jamaican overproof rum. Oh, there are so many incredibly strong and overpowering flavours in that, but they all work together. None of them overpower one another. They all work in perfect harmony. This drink is strong. You can really taste the booze in this, much in the same way you can the zombie. The Angostura bitters obviously comes through incredibly strongly and really counters something like the Wray and Nephew that otherwise takes over a drink if you've more than 1/4 ounce of it in the cocktail. This balances that out, and in the same vein, the Wray and Nephew overpowers the Angostura bitters. That's if you have more than 4 or 5 dashes of it in a cocktail, it takes over the whole thing. Those two ingredients are really important to have in equal measure because they perfectly balance each other out whilst being massively complementary. And then the orgeat, being a strong flavour in and of itself, helps round out a lot of those sharp, harsh edges. The sweet, nutty umaminess and unctuousness of the orgeat rounds off all those harsh edges and give you something smooth and just really pleasant to drink. And of course the lime juice adds a little pop of acidity to just perfectly balance the whole thing out. That's brilliant. I'm so proud of this cocktail. It's deceptively simple in composition because the flavour is abundantly complex without at any point being overpowering. So there we have it, 3 tiki cocktails, one from the very inception of the cultural movement, the classic zombie, one from the height and pinnacle of the movement, an endearing legacy that still lives on today, the Mai Tai, and something that I've come up with myself that highlights where tiki is at today and the state of revival that it finds itself in. So that's it, that is a little bit of tiki history. I hope you learned something from this video. I sure as hell learned a lot by researching it. This was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed being able to clear up a lot of misconceptions about drinks like the Mai Tai or the zombie and show you just how to make them properly, how to make them as they were originally intended. The original is often best. And why people decided to deviate from that, I will never know. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. I hope you had as much fun watching it as I had making it. These episodes are enormously fun to make, and I really do enjoy every single second of it. And if you enjoyed it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, perhaps leaving a like or even subscribing. Those two would be enormously appreciated. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. And I really hope you come back for the next one because there is always more to come. Aloha.